Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. My name is David Baer. Today I am chatting with Tim Fitzpatrick, who is joining me from the state of Colorado. Now, you might be surprised to hear that he's in Colorado when you head over to his website, because when I went to his website, I felt like I was boarding a Vaporetto on the Grand Canal in Venice. But indeed, it turns out that he is not located in Venice, despite the fact that his business is called Rialto Marketing. And there's a beautiful image of the Rialto Bridge over the Grand Canal on his site. Tim, welcome to More Perfect Marketing.
Thanks for having me, David. I'm excited to be here. And I'm impressed that you knew it was the Rialto Bridge. A lot of people don't know that.
And you know, I not only did I know it was the Rialto Bridge, but I know what the water taxis are called there. And but I'm curious, what's the deal with the name?
Yeah, so there's two. It's twofold. One, that's where my wife and I started our honeymoon. Close to my heart there. But the other thing, tying it back to business, is what do bridges do, right? They connect us from where we are to where we want to go. And that's what I believe marketing does. It helps get our businesses from where they currently are to where we want them to be. So those are the two reasons why.
And the latter is such a perfect segue into what you and I are going to be talking about today too. I bet you planned that, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, you threw up the softball. All I had to do was hit it, right?
So what the heck are we talking about? Well, we're going to talk about marketing and marketing planning specifically. How do you get from where you are to where you want to go? And you and I both, as it turns out, in our pre-recording chat, have a lot of the same ideas and inspiration for those ideas. And we recognize the value of not just, putting money down on a tactic and saying, okay, build my business.
Yeah.
But in fact, making a plan for how to get to where you want to go. And one of the things that I believe you do in your business is help business owners, and you work specifically in professional services, B2B specifically, but help those business owners sort of figure out, first of all, have you defined where you want to go? And then second of all, what are the things we need to do to get there? So I hope in the next little while that you can guide us through that process.
Absolutely. I'm excited to do it.
So one of the things that you work on, as I understand it, is it 90-day segments to sort of figure this out?
Yeah, when we look at planning in 90-day segments. I know with what you're doing, heavy focus on strategy, right? When we get involved with clients, we always start with strategy, right? You have to understand who your ideal clients are, what your message is going to be to those people, and what you're going to offer them, right? If you don't have those things in place, I think you're building a house without a foundation, which is not going to last very long. So the other way I look at strategy too is strategy is the fuel for the marketing vehicles that you're going to use. So if you skip strategy, there's all kinds of marketing vehicles, but if you have no fuel, they ain't going to go very far, right? So everything starts with strategy, but once the strategy is in place, then you have to have a plan, right? And a lot of people don't have a plan. And when you don't have a plan, what happens? There's a lot of things happen. One, very easy to get distracted and chase the next shiny marketing object, and when that happens, you're just spinning your wheels. You're not giving anything enough time to work. Yeah. When you don't know what your priorities are, easy to get distracted. It's also easy to get stressed out, right? We get stressed because we don't have clarity. Right? In order to get clarity, we need to know what our priorities are. And that's what planning helps us do. And we don't want to be like most business owners and throwing spaghetti up against a wall, hoping something sticks. So we need to plan, because in the absence of a plan, everything looks like an opportunity.
Totally.
Now, why do we do 90 days? Multiple reasons. One, I think the market is evolving quickly and our businesses are evolving quickly. I believe spending time creating like a year-long marketing plan or two or whatever, it's a waste of time. if I had a year-long marketing plan in March of 2020, what happened to it, right? The pandemic hit, that thing either got burned or went on a shelf and started collecting dust. They're too long. No year-long plan is ever what it was in the beginning by the end. And if that's the case, why are we making our plans complex? We need to make them simple. 90 days keeps it simple, and 90 days is long enough to start seeing traction. That doesn't mean that you're gonna know 100%, oh, this is the right path and it's gonna work. But 90 days is long enough to start seeing, oh, you know what? This is headed in the right direction. We need to keep investing in this to see it out, right? It's also short enough where you can make course corrections. And it's those course corrections, those little optimizations that to me make all the difference in the world in the results that you experience.
I would say the other thing that I often tell people about something as short as 90 days is that it's manageable, right? You're not
Yes.
creating giant goals to achieve in that shorter period of time. You're creating something that is possible to actually do.
Yep. It's not as overwhelming.
Yeah.
When you put together a year-long plan, you look at it and you go, oh my God, we have to do all this stuff. How are we going to do this? And then your head just starts spinning. You're like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. When you break it down into 90 days, it's much more manageable. You're really focusing on those next measurable steps. And they're bite-sized chunks. It's much, much easier.
So as an organized and accomplished guide to this process, I know that you have kind of things that you work through with client over those 90 days. And I wonder if you can guide us through sort of what are the elements of the plan, both creating it and then execution or however it might break down.
Yeah. So let me start by just walking you through the elements that we look at in a 90-day plan. And then whatever you want me to break down, I'm happy to do.
Great.
So there's 6 steps in this plan. Okay. The first one is your target market. Who are your ideal clients? This, for us, this is done when we work on strategy, right? We need to understand who those ideal clients are that we intend to work with. We can't target broadly. If we target too broadly, look, it costs a lot of money to target broadly. And I think a lot of us, when we look at large companies, we think they target broadly. It may look like they target broadly. They don't. They have very targeted campaigns, right? They're not targeting broadly. We need to focus on who are we going to market towards. Now, this doesn't mean these are the only people we're going to do business with. It just means these are the people we're going to concentrate our marketing efforts on. Yeah. I want at least a paragraph of who these people are. We want to paint the picture of who they are, demographically, psychographics, right? The psychographics starts to dig into, what are their thoughts, their aspirations, the problems they have. It's really, psychographics help us get in their head, which is really, really important. But so many people don't have even a paragraph written down of what their ideal clients are like. And from a marketing standpoint, that's where everything is based from. So to me, it has to be the first part in your plan. It has to be something that you keep top of mind at all times. And that's why it's the first step.
No, I've done this process, or at least this piece of it, with enough business owners to know that there's a lot of pushback around this, right?
Yes, there is.
There's either they're nervous about omitting some people they'd like to serve, or they have difficulty articulating. What are some of the points that you make to help move them forward and be more effective with this piece?
It's what you just said, David, all common roadblocks, right? What's interesting is when you make the choice to focus, you actually generate more leads. You convert more of your leads because you know exactly who you want to work with. You know exactly what to say to them, and your message resonates that much better with them. But the other thing too is, again, like I said, it doesn't mean those are the only people you're going to do business with. It just means those are the only people that you're going to market towards, right? But what I find when people go through our process, and everybody has slightly different processes for this, but when we work with clients on this, the first place we start is their existing and their past customer base. Like, why? There's no point in reinventing the wheel. You have people that, what we look for is, who have you worked with that you loved working with, that was profitable, that you got great results for? If you can work with people like that day in, day out, how great is your life going to be? And how great is your business going to be? You're going to love the people you're working with. You're going to be making money, and you're going to be getting great results. Your business will do very well from that. So when people walk through this process and they start to see that, that helps eliminate that pushback, because they've gone through the process, right? But the other thing too, when people do push back on this, the other thing that I focus on with them too is like, look, this is not set in stone. Like, this doesn't mean that you're forever going to target veterinarians, right?
Yeah.
What we're just saying is we're making a choice for now based on the information that we have. We're not just like throwing darts up against a board here. We're doing some groundwork. We're doing some research. And based on that, we believe this is the best avenue and course for you to go down. If it doesn't work, or you get down this path and you're like, oh my God, I hate working with doctors, this is horrible. Well, hey, you make your own business rules. You can chart another path, right? I mean, before we jumped on, we were talking about our paths. Our paths have been all over, right? It's what we initially got into business to do, we're not doing anymore. That's okay. That's part of the path. But you have to make a choice for now. And it should be a choice that is based on research that you've done, so that you're making an educated decision.
Yeah, I like that. I'd hasten to add that, you know, if for a business that is sophisticated enough or willing to do this, you can layer one ideal client on top of another on top of another. You just do them one at a time and know that you're talking to each of them in sort of their own channel.
That's right. Yeah. And we didn't dig into that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're going to have one ideal client. I personally don't think you should have more than 3. But, it depends on where you're at, right? I mean, the more advanced you are, the further you are down your path, you may be able to start going past that. But gosh, in the beginning, if you're trying to focus on more than 3, it's going to be tough.
Quick aside, because there's very few places where I would disagree with that point. I think that's an important point for most businesses. We were working with a summer camp that had, multiple ages, multiple reasons why the kids would come. They would be a week at a time, and they would be different topics. That's a place where we started with, they had a general audience, and over the course of time, and I don't even remember the number that they came up with, but they had 17 or 19 different avatars or ideal client personas that they had created. But that's an exception to the rule. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, and as you dig into it, you can see that pattern start to form, right? And when you started to dig into their audience, you're like, damn, there's a lot of different subgroups here that could be options. I think the important thing there is, in the beginning, focusing on, okay, who's the most important one to focus on first, right? And to me, that's where you start to dig into, well, is there an audience that's the largest group? Are the ones that are better clients, right? Do they keep coming back? Again, it goes back to those clients you love, the ones that are most profitable, right? And the ones you get great results for, the ones that are super happy, right? If you use those as your measuring stick, I think it's such an easy place to start. Yeah. It makes the process much simpler for most people.
So now that we know the who,
yes,
what comes next?
Next, you need to know what your goal is, right? And since this is only 90 days, this is where we all have longer term goals, right? Here, it's what's my goal for the next 90 days. It's going to help me get one step closer to my longer term goal. It's going to be time bound because this is a 90-day plan. It needs to be specific and needs to be measurable, right? I intend to bring on 5 new clients in the next 90 days. It's fine. One of the things that I like to preface when I talk about this is the way a goal like this was described to me is that it's an outcome-based goal. To me, with an outcome-based goal, there's a lot of things beyond your control that may impact your ability to hit that goal. And I've seen people get so attached to an outcome-based goal that when they don't hit it, like the wheels come off. That's a bad place to be, right? So I think it's important to have your goal because you need to know where you intend to go. But I don't want you to get so attached to this that if you come up short, it derails you, if that makes sense.
It doesn't, and you preempted I was going to say an objection, a challenge that I was going to make by saying you don't necessarily have control over
No, you don't.
this sort of goal, but you can try to set up the pieces to be able to achieve something. Look, the things that you can have control over often are not going to be as meaningful as trying to achieve a particular outcome, in my experience.
Yep, totally agree. So to me, it's you need to have the goal, but then from there, I think it's important to focus on the activities that you can control and get those things done and see where it takes you.
So
right?
what would some worthwhile types of goals be in this scenario?
Well, like I said, it's here, I'm talking about an outcome-based goal. So again, it could be we intend to bring on 5 new clients, or
Okay.
we intend to increase revenue by 30% this quarter, right? Something like that is, that's your typical SMART goal, right?
Okay.
It's time bound, it's measurable, you're going to know whether you hit it or not. But what you need to put in your plan, which we'll get to, are those things that you believe you need to do that are going to help you get to that goal.
Got it. And in terms of those goals that you would say that doesn't work, do you have any examples of things that you might have seen?
Something that would be more generic, that's not specific or measurable, right?
Okay.
So
do more business than last month.
Exactly. Do more business than last month. Bring on more clients.
Got it.
It is okay, great. Well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's too nebulous.
Okay.
So,
I would guess something that's not achievable also.
Yeah. You're not going to know whether you really achieve it.
Yeah.
It's you bring on more new clients could be 1 or it could be 100. And 1 may not really get you to where you want to be long term, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to kind of hone in on a goal that's going to help us get closer to where we want to be. And in order for it to do that, I think it needs to be pretty specific.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we got the who, we got the goal.
Yeah. Then you've got your budget and your resources. What we're looking at here is what we have to work with in our plan, right? If we have a lot to work with, well, then we can put more in our plan. If we don't have a lot to work with, then we can't, right? So we need to have an idea of what we have. Do I have $500 a month? Do I have $50,000 a month to work with? Is it just me as the business owner who's got time to invest in some of my marketing activities, or do I have a staff? We also need to consider not just time resources, we need to understand capability. If you're on my team, David, or I'm on your team, and you want me to do LinkedIn, and I look at you and I'm like, LinkedIn, what the hell is LinkedIn? Well, then that's probably not going to be a good fit. We either need to level up my skills or we need to find somebody else to do it. So we're just making sure that in this step that we're not going to bite off too much or too little in our plan. And we're going to make sure that we're going to get the right task to the right people.
So I also imagine that a resource is probably, maybe this is coming after, but ability to actually absorb whatever it is that you're trying to generate.
Yes. So that's a good point. That's what we're also looking at here in this third step is if I, as the owner, am going to do some of this marketing, how much time do I actually have to allocate to it? 2 hours a week, 8, 10, right? Because again, that's something that is a variable that's going to impact how much I can put in my plan or how little I need to put in my plan.
Got it. Okay. All right. What's next?
Next is your current marketing plan. What the heck are you doing right now? Right. And I know when I say that, a lot of people may not even have a plan, and that's okay. But in order to put a plan together to get us where we want to go, we have to know where the hell we're starting from. You know, it's like my GPS. My GPS can't tell me how to get to Denver International Airport until I tell it where I'm starting from. So this is a really important step. We can go super deep into this, right? But to keep this at a high level, when we look at where you're currently starting, we look at multiple different things here. One, strategy. Do you have strategy in place? Okay. And then we look at the main marketing channels. And I look at them as your website, your content. Are you creating content, blog, podcasts, videos, whatever that may be? Search engine optimization. We've got social media, email marketing, paid advertising online. So like Google, Facebook ads, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. And then offline marketing. I throw a lot of things into offline marketing, but there's a lot of digital agencies that they have no idea what the hell you're doing with your offline marketing. But offline marketing is a huge driver for a lot of businesses. So I think it is a really important element that you cannot overlook. So all I ask you to do, if you take what we talk about today, just look at those 8 elements. And I just want you to write down, like, what do you have in place? Do you know who your ideal clients are, right? Do you feel like you have a message that's engaging for them? Do you have a website? What are you doing on social media? You don't have to be in all these channels to be successful, by the way. So as I run down that list, if you're saying to yourself, oh my God, like I'm not even in half of these, doesn't matter. You don't have to be in all of them, but we need to have an idea of what you've put in place and what you continue to do on a regular basis with your marketing. Super important.
One of the things that I have found in this area that you've been talking about, first of all, that offline thing is potentially huge for some types of businesses, because it can range from everything from trade show activity to direct mail to billboards to whatever else, right?
Networking, referral partners,
totally,
on speaking. I mean, there's tons in offline marketing.
The other thing that I have found as I've been doing this sort of discovery of existing or past marketing, and that's not exactly what you said. You were like, where are you starting from? But that a lot of businesses have had very successful marketing efforts in the past that they've just stopped doing and have never revisited. And it's, some brochure that was used from, this year to that year, it drove great results and they don't use it anymore and everybody forgot about it.
Yep.
And so being able to dig that out from the past is also incredibly powerful.
Yep. It's so easy to overlook, right? We overlook the thing. We stop doing these things that were successful and they're not even on our radar at this point. But when we go back and look at what we've done, it gives us an opportunity to review it and go, oh my God, why did we stop doing that? I don't know why, but maybe we should put it in our plan moving forward because it was working for us. So it's really powerful.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing with people at this phase. Obviously when we do it for a client, it's pretty in depth. If somebody's going to do it for themselves, that's totally okay. Right. It's a heck of a lot better than what most people do, which is not look back at anything and not get an idea of where they are. They just guess, I think this is the path I need to go down. So, this is a really critical step. It gives you that baseline that you need to determine what your next steps are going to be.
And it might be worth doing it, with somebody else to actually ask you those challenging or follow-up questions, right?
Yeah. Well, look, I fall into this camp. I'm sure you do too, David. As business owners, we're too close to the fire, man. We can't think about our businesses objectively. I can put marketing messaging together for clients all day. I suck at it for myself. I mean, it's hard. We just can't think objectively. So getting those outside eyes, I think, is invaluable.
Yeah. By the way, I am totally in that camp. We call it the cobbler's children syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah. The cobbler's children have no shoes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. What's next on our list
So
here?
next is, this is where we're starting to get into our priorities, right? And what we're going to focus on in the next 90 days. When we break this down into the same 8 channels that I just talked about in current marketing. So, and again, depending on where you're starting from, what your goals are, what your budget, your resources, your time, all of those elements contribute to what you actually put into your plan for the next 90 days. Right. So a lot of people go, well, gosh, what should my plan be? Or, I'm here, like, can't you just give me a plan for like all accountants? No, like, you're at a different place, right? I could talk to one accountant who has, they've got a certain size team, they've got more resources, they want to 10x their business in 5 years, not 2x it in 10 years. Those are 2 totally different plans, right? So there's a lot of variables that go into this. Here's what I will tell your audience. Try and give them some very actionable data here. Because a lot of people say, well, I'm here, what should I be focusing on? Here's where I find the lowest hanging fruit is. And you actually touched on one of them. What used to work that we stopped doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other thing is, what's working? Where are we generating most of our leads that are then converting to customers? That, before you go into some new channel or new tactic, you need to look at that, because my guess is you're not optimizing that fully.
Yeah.
There's either things that you could do more of that'll going to give you better results there, or there's gaps in that process that when you fill them, it's going to work that much better. So let's optimize what's already working for you first before we start branching out into a bunch of other elements.
So just a question about the optimization, because I imagine as you've gone through this sort of scenario with clients, do you see trends or places where many businesses tend to overlook certain types of metrics that might inform how to optimize or where to optimize?
That's a very good question, and we're going to get into that one in a minute. But let me try and give your audience an example that a lot of us will understand. Referrals, right? So many businesses generate the vast majority of their business from referrals. Yet when you or I sit down and have a conversation and we ask, well, how do you get referrals? What's your process for that? It's shocking how many people are like, what process? It just happens because we do great work. Really? Like, what do you think might happen if you actually put some steps in the customer journey, in your process, to actually ask people for referrals? What do you think might happen there? That's a simple example. So many people aren't doing that, and they should be asking for referrals multiple times in the process of working with them. Very simple one. Do you have a referral program? Like, home services, there's a lot of home services businesses that do this really well, where, they may have double-ended referrals. Hey, if you refer a new client, we're going to give them a certain amount of money back and we'll give you a certain amount of money, things like that. Does a referral program, look, some of us are in businesses where we can't do that, or it doesn't make sense to do that, but can you put together some type of referral program and promote that, right? Those are 2 cases where there are gaps, potential gaps in the process, that when we fill, they start to work. Now, if they are asking for referrals, how are they doing it? How often are they doing it? Who are they asking? Where are the referrals coming from? Do you have referral partners that are sending you like multiple deals every year? Or are you getting like onesie twosie referrals from past clients? Yeah. So that's just a simple example of some of the things you might do to look at a process and go, can we do something better? Do we need to put systems in place? Do we need to do more of something that we're already doing? But that's low-hanging fruit for a lot of people.
I love the fact that you brought up referrals and referral systems, because it's one that we spend a lot of time and energy talking about in our business with clients and with other marketers, teaching them how to ask that question. But you mentioned something really important about that I wanted to just bring you back to, which is, who are you asking?
Yeah.
And I think you'll likely agree that not every existing customer is a candidate to ask to give you referrals.
Yeah, that's right. Well, what birds of a feather flock together, right? Yeah. You want to make sure. I believe you want to focus on your best clients, your ideal clients, because there's a much higher likelihood that they're going to refer you to people like them, that are going to be better fits for you. But that's another part of the process too, right? Is like, how do you ask for those? How do you teach the people that you're asking for referrals to send you good referrals?
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a lot of people that are getting referrals, but they're not good referrals. And so those are all things that we can look at in just one aspect of marketing to refine that and get better results faster.
I'll go a little deeper on the point that you just made, because the other piece that we spend a little time looking at is, how do you incentivize for referrals?
Yep.
And are you incentivizing for the referral or for the converted sale from a referral, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of variables here, but I think that your point that at least you got to start with systematizing it is really, really important.
Yeah. There's tons of opportunity there, right? So that, to me, that's one of the first things that you focus on in your first 90-day plan.
Yeah.
Before that, though, if you don't have the strategy in place, you got to take your first 90 days and get your strategy right. Because otherwise, like I said before, you got vehicles, but you have no fuel, and you're going to waste time and you're going to waste money. The most common default here is, but gosh, I feel like I'm not taking action. Like I'm not getting out there and doing things that are going to immediately generate leads. But what happens when people take that shorter term approach, the short-term thinking, 6 months down the road, 9 months down the road, they're like, dude, we're doing all these things and nothing's working. Yeah, because you're trying to target all these people that makes no sense. Your message sucks. So all the activities you're doing aren't working. Right. So we've got to do strategy first. Your website got to be right. Like good messaging. You've got to have, the right content blocks, good calls to action, leading people down the path that you want them to go down. If your website's not right, your marketing is going to suffer, because even if you're 100% referral business, people aren't just picking up the phone or emailing you first anymore. They're going online, they're checking you out. And if your website sucks, looks like it was from 1995, they're like, why did David refer me to this guy? And man, this guy, Tim, his website sucks. It's horrible. I'm not reaching out to this guy. So your strategy, your website, then optimizing what's already working. Then from there, you can start to expand out. But I believe in the first, depending on where you're at and how quickly you can get this stuff done, these things I just talked about, you may focus on for the first 3 to 9 months. Yeah. And to me, that's okay. Because I think if you're going to be successful with your marketing, you have to think about it from a long-term perspective. If you think about marketing short-term, you're going to make all kinds of decisions that are never going to, it's just not going to work. You're never going to be happy.
Well, and I think the whole idea about the 90 days and then just repeating that process over and over is that it's giving a business the opportunity to refine, dial in, and actually pay attention to those incremental improvements that they're making. And I think that is hugely, hugely important for businesses, most of whom are not doing this at all right now.
Yeah. When we're trying to keep this simple enough where you can do it over and over and over again, because the only things that you're going to benefit from in your business are the ones that you can implement and do consistently, right? Marketing is not a switch you can turn on and off.
Yeah.
You got to do it consistently over time. So
So
now you asked me about metrics.
okay.
Metrics is the last step or element in this plan. A lot of people don't know whether things are working in their marketing. And the reason they don't know whether they're working is because they're either not tracking metrics or they're tracking the wrong metrics. And the metrics are what are going to help guide our decisions and help tell us, is this working? Is it not? So it's got to be in the plan. What metrics are we going to focus on? Now, David, you and I both know this. With marketing, there are so many metrics. There are tons of vanity metrics that just don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many followers do you have on Facebook? How many people are on your email list? How many visitors are coming to your website? I don't care. If those things are not generating leads that turn to customers, they don't matter at all, right? I mean, I don't know how many people have said it, but there's tons of broke influencers online, right?
Oh, yes.
They got a ton of followers, but they're not generating any money. So who cares? So to me, there's a lot of metrics you can track, but I want to give your audience some actionable information here. So to me, there are a few metrics that you've got to start with first if you're not tracking any. The first is leads. How many leads are we generating each month? You need to define what a lead is for your business, okay? That may be slightly different depending on what business you're in. But for example, for my business, like if somebody signs up for my email list, that's not a lead. For somebody to become a lead for me, they have to raise their hand and say, hey, I would like to have a conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where somebody becomes a lead for me. That may be different for you, or it's okay. You just need to define it so that you can accurately determine when somebody crosses that threshold.
Yep.
Once I know how many leads I'm generating each month, the next thing I want to know is where are they coming from? Like, where am I getting them? And a lot of people say, well, how do you do that? There are some ways that you can track some of this stuff, but let's not overcomplicate this. When you talk to a lead, ask them how they heard about you. Okay. It's not going to be perfect, but guess what? It's a hell of a lot better than where you are now because you're not even asking in most cases. As you start to gather that data and you determine where they're finding out about you, now you've got data that's telling you what marketing channels are actually working. Did they come in from referral? Did they find you on social media? Did they hear about you from a speaking gig you did? Right? As you start to get that data over time, now you can start to identify, geez, 75% of our leads are coming from referral.
Mm-hmm.
That's big. Or, oh my God, I had no idea that 30% of our leads are coming from social media or coming from Facebook. Maybe we need to spend a little bit more time seeing if we can build that up and increase that, right? Hopefully people are starting to get an idea of, oh my gosh, like as I start to get this information, now I can see how there's actionable info here that can start to dictate the decisions that I make and the updates that I make in my plan. But the last metric that I think is really important to start is how many leads are converting to customers, right? Your conversion rate.
Sure.
When you know that, now you know how many leads you need to generate to get a new customer. Man, a lot of people don't know that, but when you know that, man, it becomes really powerful because if you intend to get 5 new clients and you know what your conversion rate is, now you're going to know how many leads you have to generate to do that. A lot of people can't tell you that, but when you track the right metrics, you'll know that.
And again, you're pointing out this is a good starting point. There's obviously so much more that you can be doing with the tracking and ways to be able to identify your most profitable channels and all those sorts of things. But you got to start here before you can even get to that other stuff. Yeah,
you got to walk before you run, right?
Yeah.
And tracking website visits when you have no idea how many leads you're getting and how many are converting to customers and where they're coming from, like it's a waste of time. It doesn't mean anything to me. So start there, then you can expand out. Like you said, there are so many marketing metrics.
Yeah.
But start there. Once you get comfortable with those, then you can start to expand out. Now from there, I think there are a few others that are really important. the lifetime value, understanding the lifetime value of a customer for you, super important. Because a lot of people when they look at their lead costs, they're looking at that and they're comparing it to like an initial sale, but that's not giving you the entire picture. And, Dan Kennedy, we talked about this before. Dan Kennedy talks about, the person that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at your cost per lead and saying, well, I make $100 on an initial sale and I paid $5 for this lead, you're not getting the whole picture. Because if the lifetime value of that customer is not $100, but it's $1,000, you can pay a hell of a lot more than $5 for a lead. So you can outspend your competition. You can acquire more leads. You really need to look at lifetime value to determine how much you can spend for a lead, right? But once you understand lifetime value, then you can look at cost per lead, cost to acquire a customer. To me, those are the next logical metrics to start to track. And then you can really go into the weeds in tracking metrics per marketing channel, social, website, SEO, all of that. But man, who cares about your email open engagement rate until you know the first three metrics I just talked about?
Yeah. Well, before we get too deep into metrics, which by the way is one of our favorite topics to talk about in my business, I'll probably have to say we need to stop there. I'm sorry that we didn't tell people to grab a pen and paper and jot all of this stuff down in advance, but fortunately, you actually have this all spelled out for people so that they didn't even need to take the notes.
Right. Yes.
Where can they find your worksheet to sort of help them through all of this?
Yeah, I appreciate that, David. So if they go to growthmarketingplan.com, at growthmarketingplan.com, there's an instructional video that walks through the steps we just talked about. The template that we use for our business, our clients, is there. There's some sample plans, everything you need to understand this concept and start putting your first plan together. They're all right there.
Awesome. Well, we will leave a link to growthmarketingplan.com in the show notes as well as your other links to your website and to your podcast, which is an awesome one. And I have to catch up to the number of episodes that you have recorded. You're like 70 some ahead of me at this point. I think we need to leave it there. Tim Fitzpatrick, thank you so very much for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure, David.
So folks, if you happen to chat with Tim as a result of this conversation and he says, where did you hear about me? Yeah. Don't just say, oh, I heard you on some podcast. Tell him you heard him here at More Perfect Marketing. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. And I hope to see you back here real soon. Take care.